Hey y'all, thank you for checking out this video today. I want to go over some of the stuff that I was afraid of before starting the PCT. Some might seem obvious, some might seem silly, but if it helps anyone out there, that would be awesome. So without further ado, let's just get into it. The first one I want to talk about is snakes. And not any snakes, it's just venomous snakes that I'm really afraid of. On the Appalachian Trail, I ran into like 3 or 4 rattlesnakes and 1 or 2 copperheads. And it really just is not my favorite experience. So I was really scared about going into the desert knowing that there would be a lot of rattlesnakes. And while I had that in my head that there would be a lot, it did come to fruition. I probably saw along the whole PCT around 20 rattlesnakes, mostly in the desert, but even some in Northern California. And while I would say I'm more comfortable around rattlesnakes and really admire them, they're beautiful creatures, every time I hear that rattle or see them, my heart starts racing a little bit faster. So there's really not much you can do to avoid them. I mean, they're out there, it's their habitat, but you should always stay vigilant. You know, I see people hiking with their music, and don't get me wrong, I love listening to music and podcasts as much as the next person, but they would have both earbuds in. So I think it's good practice to just always have one out and always be aware of your surroundings, whether that is for snakes or, just anything else, like a hiker coming up behind you. It's just really good to be able to have at least one ear listening to what might be out there. And with that being said, they don't all rattle, so you just have to be somewhat cautious, especially when you're in the desert. That's where you're going to see most of them. They don't want to harm you, and they just don't want you to harm them. So if they're being super aggressive, just give them the space, be cautious, maybe try walking around them off the trail, keeping your own safety in mind too. And through all my hikes, AT, PCT, CDT, I really have only heard one story of someone getting bitten. So, while there might be lots of snakes out there, there's more hikers. So it's not a common occurrence, but you just have to be mindful of it and just know they're out there. Keeping with the theme of the desert, that leads me to number 2. The number 2 thing I was worried about was just the heat in the desert. Before I was going out there, I was thinking it was going to be flat, cactuses everywhere you went, 120 degrees or whatever. And while it does get really hot in the PCT desert, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I think that was an advantage for me, thinking it was going to be a lot worse than it was. But a normal day in the desert, people would usually, wake up fairly early before the sun would rise, get some miles in before the heat of the day really kicked in, and then hopefully found some shade, which there was actually quite a few spots to hide out during the heat of the day. And then after the sun started to go down, people would start hiking again. Another thing I would recommend for the heat of the desert is just one of those silver umbrellas. Everyone's seen them. They might look goofy, but I really do think they make a big impact. Not just keeping the sun off of you, but it's literally like almost 10 degrees cooler underneath them. So it just allows you to hike during the day if you need to make those miles. The third thing, and this might seem really silly, but to me, I was afraid of where I was going to go poop in the desert. I was thinking it was going to be flat and no trees or bushes to go behind. Luckily, it was quite the opposite, because most of the time you're in the high desert and it's not really like that. I did have one experience on the CDT in the Great Divide Basin where there's nothing around for miles and miles, just flatness, no bushes, no nothing. So luckily, the umbrella came in handy once again. I hiked like 300 feet off the trail, dug my cat hole, and just popped the umbrella open and did my business. A few people walked by, gave a nice little wave, and finished up and then hiked back to the trail and just kept going. Luckily, the people who hiked by were the group I was hiking with, so it was more comical than anything else. And with that being said, it's just important to practice proper leave no trace. Make sure you're 200 feet from your campsite, water, or the trail, and that you dig a deep enough cat hole to bury your waste. In some areas, it's best to pack it out, or at least definitely the toilet paper. The desert's one of those areas because it's so arid. Where I live here in North Carolina, the soil is so full of microorganisms and just is so moist all the time that toilet paper breaks down in weeks. So that's just, one of the advantages. So you just need to know where you're going hiking and what's the best practice for that area. The fourth and final thing that I was really afraid of before starting the PCT was getting lost in the Sierra. I knew from reading and watching videos that it wasn't as well blazed or marked as the AT. But most of the time I knew it was going to be fine. You just follow the trail and it'll be good. But in the Sierras I was worried because if there's no trail to follow and it's just snow, how do you know where to go? Luckily, by the time I went through, enough people had already started going through the Sierras that they had left a pretty defined path. Now you shouldn't always trust it because they might get you lost, so always be checking your maps and everything like that, but it's usually a pretty safe bet. And this really all just depends on your situation. You might have a low snow year and now you have to worry about it. Or you might have a really high snow year and you have to, go up north first and then hike back down south to the Sierras, waiting for it to melt. Or you could be one of the early starters and be the first one to the Sierras. In that case, you really just want to be diligent, checking your maps, making sure you're on path and going the right direction. But all in all, in my experience, it wasn't too bad. Snow travel can be a lot tougher. It is better to hit it in the morning. If you're trying to do 2 passes in a day, that second pass is going to be really soft and you're going to be post-holing a lot. But it just depends on what you want to accomplish with your hike. Now I'm going to talk about things that I wasn't worried about that I might have should have been and put a little bit more thought into it. The first thing I want to talk about is self-doubt. Going into the PCT, I was super confident that I was going to finish it with no problem, since I have hiked the AT before and I was a seasoned thru-hiker. But even starting the first day, I was like, why am I doing this again? I've already hiked 2,000 miles. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. And for the first 900 miles of the trail, I was pretty much hiking by myself. Even though there was plenty of people around me, I wasn't in a group. And that made things a lot harder on me mentally than I should have been. It's really important to find a group. They give you someone that you can have fun with, laugh with, complain with, and it just really makes the hike that much easier. I don't mind hiking by myself. The last 800 miles of the CDT, I didn't see a single hiker, and it was fine. But, it does make it easier with a group in the mental aspect of it. While it might be tougher logistically, some people want to go into town and stay a couple nights, other people want to keep hiking. That might be tougher. But for the long run, for your mental health, it is nice to have someone that you can, commiserate with and really helps pass the time. Another thing that I should have been worried about that I wasn't was getting sick. I got sick pretty bad twice on the PCT. Once was coming out of Kennedy Meadows and the other was near South Lake Tahoe. As much as I would like to think that I always have good practice of using hand sanitizer before I eat and after I go to the bathroom, and purifying my water at all the sources, there's still somehow I got sick, and that's just something I actually have to deal with. Once again, it was nice being with a group. The second time, they really helped me out and kept me going forward. We're pretty sure it was the norovirus. It just passed in a few days, but it was quite a nasty experience. I got it first, but the next day, the 6 or 7 other people that I were hiking with got it. We were all stuck in one hotel room with one bathroom. So earbuds in both ears was definitely the way to go, so you didn't hear what was going on in there. But it wasn't just my group who was getting sick. It was pretty much everyone around us was getting sick too. So it's just, really important to make sure you're trying to stay as clean and healthy as possible when you're out there. I know it's tough, and I love sleeping in the dirt as much as the next person, if not more, but it is important to try to stay as healthy as you can when you're out there. The first one was when I was getting out of Kennedy Meadows, which that place was disgusting. There was way too many people there, and the facilities couldn't handle it. I don't know if I got sick from being there or not treating my water somewhere in the Sierras because I thought all the water was so fresh. But I'm pretty sure I got Giardia. Luckily, within the next couple of days, I got into Bishop and was able to go to the hospital and get some medicine, which cleared it up super fast. But I couldn't keep anything down for those days. I would eat a bar and have to go to the bathroom try to eat dinner, have to go to the bathroom. So once again, just make sure you're purifying your water and trying to keep your hands as clean as possible. The third and final thing that I'm going to mention that I wasn't afraid of, which maybe I should have been, was bees. They came out of nowhere. I was not expecting to get stung as many times as I did on the PCT. And this was all farther north once it was starting to get into fall. Most of the bees that stung me were ground bees. And once it gets colder, they start to get more agitated, so just walking by their nest in the ground might be enough to set them off and want to sting you. I got stung around 20 to 25 times between northern Oregon and the finish of Washington. It wasn't pleasant. I'm not allergic to bees, but towards the end, I got stung a few times and like my ankle started to swell up from the sting, so it was actually kind of worrisome. There's not much you can do about it. Just be wary about it, and if you get stung, maybe try running so that the rest don't sting you. Some people leave notes in the trail. It's not going to do you much good because you stop to read the note and then all the bees come out and sting you. So just be mindful of that. Maybe pants would help. I don't know. Thank you for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to have another one coming out soon on the CDT, and hopefully we'll have some gear videos out as well. So until then, hope you're able to get out on the trail.